Donald Trump reacts to the midterms, asking, why would anything change? Everything went fine. I mean, I feel good. You don't feel good? Why don't you leave me alone and look at my record? It seems like many of his candidates did do well, and other people are supporting him. When asked about the midterm reaction, Donald Trump said, why would anything change? He communicated this over to The Hill and to Fox News. Former President Donald Trump appeared undeterred by the GOP's lackluster results in Tuesday's midterm elections, indicating on Wednesday that he does not plan to move the big announcement that was scheduled for next week. We know that's scheduled for November 15th. We learned on yesterday's show that Jason Miller, who runs Getter, and Kayleigh McEnany, who is a former press secretary for Donald Trump in the Trump White House, they both said he should probably wait. Why? Because, well, there's a special election, a runoff that has to happen in Georgia. And we all know what happened last time there was a special election in Georgia. Ugh. But Trump doesn't see it that way. And Trump never sees anything that way, right? This is kind of one of his superpowers. Everything is positive. He never loses. He always thinks that he's victorious, and he sort of wills it into existence, whether it's true or not. He said, what are you talking about? We had tremendous success. Why would anything change, is what he told Fox News Digital. The former president frequently hinted in the final weeks that he plans to announce a 2024 bid imminently. On Monday, he said he had a big announcement. Many people suspect that's going to be taking place in Mar-a-Lago with Melania right next door, right by his side, ready to make this announcement. While Trump touted his endorsements on Tuesday, the general consensus was that there was no red wave, but Republicans are still expected to take control of the House. The Senate is very close. The runoff is going to be also close in Georgia. Trump advisor Jason Miller said, hold off. He said, everything over the next month is about Herschel Walker. We got to get there. That's priority A, B, and C. Kayleigh McEnany, we heard from her yesterday, said the same thing as well. Said we can't start talking about 2024 until we've got the Senate locked up. Chris Sununu, governor of New Hampshire, said the same thing. But Donald Trump says nothing has changed. Why would anything change? We did great. Our candidates were beautiful. Now, people agree with him. Some people, including Kari Lake, think that that is a very astute and perfect observation because Trump has done a lot of good. Kari Lake says, why are people dumping on Trump? Trump has done a lot of good for America. He has been somebody who's promoted America First policies. And now, since there was a little bit of unmet expectations after the midterms, people are trying to dogpile on him and make him the scapegoat for all of the GOP problems. That's not appropriate.
Why all of a sudden is everyone pounding the poor guy to death? I mean, he did a lot of good things for this country.
I'll tell you why they're doing it, because he's probably going to announce he's running, and some people don't want him to, but I don't think that's going to stop him. He did amazing things for this country. His America First policies had every group of citizens doing better. Didn't matter what your skin color was, didn't matter what your zip code was. We were riding high under President Trump.
And many people agree with her. A lot of people sort of only remember the bad stuff, but never talk about the good stuff. And in this case, a lot of people seem to forget that Donald Trump worked quite hard for them and really supported a lot of Republican candidates. It feels like to me, the Republican Party, the GOP, generally demands that Trump support all of their candidates and bend over backwards to support the Republican Party. But if a jurisdiction selects, let's say, an America First Trump-ish candidate, that same courtesy doesn't go the other way, right? It kind of doesn't matter what type of Republican wins, right? As long as they're not a Democrat, as long as they're sort of somebody who's more closely aligned with freedom than the Democrats are, why wouldn't Trump, if he supports some of the non-Trump candidates, or he, will go and support J.D. Vance, for example, somebody who was not necessarily a Trump fan at first, they were able to reconcile. But conveniently, the GOP doesn't provide that same courtesy. I'm talking about Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, Kevin McCarthy. They don't show the same love and affection for a lot of the America First candidates, a lot of the MAGA candidates. Instead, they seem to be biting at each other constantly, while the Republican Party in general crumbles because of the division. Kari Lake says Donald Trump really deserves more credit than he's being given. And I think she is absolutely right about that. And so we've got a whole separate segment to get. We've got a whole nother conversation here about the Democrats. They are very concerned that Donald Trump, if he wins, he's going to change the balance of power. But in the near term, they're ultra concerned that the Republicans might win the House of Representatives and open up all sorts of investigations. This Democrat is saying, can we all just get along? Let there be peace. If the Republicans win, we can finally work together. So we'll listen to her in a minute. But first, my friends, we have to talk about gold because holy moly, we know that things are rough out there. If you have an IRA or a 401k or a savings account, things are scary. The Biden administration has already printed more money in the past 2 years than the previous 100 years combined. The national debt hit a record $30 trillion. Inflation is the highest we've seen since 1982. It's only a matter of time until the house of cards comes crashing down. If you have retirement, your money could be at serious risk. I'll invite you to talk to my friends at Goldco to see how you can protect your retirement with gold and silver before it's too late. Go to robertlikesgold.com. If you go there, they'll give you $10,000 or more in free silver when you open up a qualifying account. That's robertlikesgold.com. This is a Better Business Bureau, AAA, A+ rated business. And it's an amazing company. Go protect your savings with gold at robertlikesgold.com. All right, my friends. And so we have this Democrat who's very concerned that the Republicans are going to be investigating them. They don't want the microscope turned upon them. Representative Slotkin is a little bit nervous. She says, why can't we all just get along? The Republicans are in charge. It's time to reach across the aisle. Let's let bygones be bygones and work together.
Without either party having significant control of either house. We don't know who's going to control the Senate at this point. And then the Democrat in the White House, it looks like this could be a recipe for gridlock for 2 years.
Yeah, I hope not. I mean, I think when you have a small majority, which is what it looks like my Republican colleagues will have in the House, I know from experience of the last 2 years, it can be a pretty fractious thing. You've got factions. They have the Freedom Caucus. You have folks in our side that are on the left who often don't agree even when their own party puts a bill forward. And so it creates this problem set where they can't lose any votes, or they have to reach across the aisle and get a few Democrats to vote with them. And my hope is that they look at that as a strategy. We certainly had to use that a few times in the past 2 years in the House, to pass things like the infrastructure bill. So for me, I hope that we don't just have 2 years of investigations and focusing on, investigate niche issues, that we're actually focusing on things that they said they wanted to focus on, which is the economy, which is national security, which is making sure we get away from just kind of throwing bombs at each other and actually do the work.
Yeah, we should really get along. Things like investigating your political enemies, it's really not good for the country. Let's focus on the important things like the economy and inflation and getting our supply chain fixed and solving educational problems and all the important stuff. The last thing you want to do is spend 2 years investigating like a protest or something that leads to indictments of your political enemies. We don't want inquisitions and criminal prosecutions in multiple states all over the place going after, people. It's just not good for the country. And so as you know here, Mr. Fox News, we have reached across the aisle many times, and we're just hopeful that the Republicans can do that for us.
Let me just press you a little bit on that. You say you hope that we don't have 2 years of investigations. We just had 2 years of investigations. So are the Democrats allowed to investigate, but the Republicans aren't?
No, but I would offer that an investigation of an armed insurrection of the U.S. Capitol
with water bottles
is far different than investigating the son of our president, who the FBI has had many, many years to look into.
Yeah, well, he also had some pretty close relationships with, the president, the vice president at the time. Okay, it's not just some, isolated presidential son who was just off, having a good time, unconnected to any official business. He was traveling around with Joe Biden to China and places while he was the vice president. It was ripe for corruption. There's been mounds of evidence that these people have grifted or stolen from the American people for their own personal gain at the political expense of the country. And that doesn't warrant an investigation because a couple people were armed at the January 6th protest, whereas many of the assault charges were for throwing water bottles at police officers. And that's not a joke.
if they had saw fit. I think comparing those two is a little bit of a reach, to be honest. And
it's not at all.
I think it was a good thing that our country investigated on a bipartisan basis.
Bipartisan basis, the J6 committee. Adam Kinzinger is the Republican. He's going to be thrown out of Congress. He is basically a Democrat, right? I don't think he likes anybody who's a Republican, including Ron DeSantis, including Kevin McCarthy. He's never said anything positive about Mitch McConnell, and he hates Donald Trump. That's the bipartisan Republican? Okay. Who is the other one? Oh, yeah, Liz Cheney, who just got thrown out of the Republican Party by the Republican Party in Wyoming by 40 points. It wasn't bipartisan at all. It wasn't an actual investigation at all. This was a set up book report that the Democrats utilized for the last 2 years to beat their political enemies into oblivion. No counter evidence was presented. There were no adversarial questions asked. It was a giant fake show. But she's going to say that it's okay for the Democrats to have a fake show. It's not okay for the Republicans to have a fake show. I think that's ridiculous. The Republicans, if they want to survive, if they have a desire to continue to exist, they're going to use the same tools that the Democrats are using. Otherwise, they will be thrown out of the American political arena.
January 6th insurrection. Do I think that we should spend a lot of time looking at individuals when, again, law enforcement has had plenty of time to make their case, to look into these people? No. If there's something that's truly worthy of investigation, that's Congress's role. But in my mind, comparing the January 6th insurrection to Hunter Biden is a little off.
Well, we did have the entire Russia investigation as well, which turned out to go nowhere.
Yeah. What about that? Yeah, exactly right. You people have been using investigations and the strong arm of the government for your personal political gain for years. You guys faked the entire Russia collusion saga with Michael Sussman and Jim Baker and the Steele dossier, and you use that to derail Trump's presidency from day one. And now you're going to say that the Republicans shouldn't turn around and investigate you after you've been punching them in the nose for years using the same tool? What a joke. This lady, my understanding is she's like ex-CIA, former CIA, representative in California. So, take that for what it's worth. Not 2 years of investigations. Please, please, please don't investigate us for 2 years. It's time for us to finally get along. Now, Adam Kinzinger is also out there. He is really trying to milk these appearances before he gets thrown out of Congress next year. Adam Kinzinger is on with MSNBC. They ask him, Adam, you're a pretty influential figure. You've really changed the course of America with your valiant work on the fake, illegally constituted January 6th Select Committee. Do you think, will you take credit for some of this amazing midterm outcomes that we're seeing here today?
Member, of course, of the January 6th committee. There were 2 Republicans on the committee who's had death threats and all kinds of abuse for being on that committee. I don't know if you were listening, but we were just talking with Michael Steele about how he thought the January 6th committee hearings were a turning point.
Michael Steele, who created a fake dossier that was entirely fraudulent. He got it from Igor Danchenko, who got prosecuted and was not convicted because the FBI and the DOJ cover for themselves everywhere you turn. The entire thing was fake, and she has him on as a guest. And then she uses him as a credibility segue to lay up a question for Adam Kinzinger, who's going to now tell us about more fakeness.
In terms of changing the ideas of the electorate about what democracy means and what a threat means. And perhaps also we should add the president's closing arguments that people derided.
Yeah, and I think he's right, and he's actually the first person I've heard say this because, I guess the conventional wisdom and the thing that I have been holding on to is, look, the committee will make an impact in future history. It will tell the truth in school books that the kids are going to learn about.
He's a propagandist who's telling you that his propaganda is going to end up in the school books. And that's really what he wants. He doesn't really care about reality or the truth. Doesn't have any questions about the Senate Sergeant at Arms or the House Sergeant at Arms or the declination by Muriel Bowser to decline the National Guard the day of. We have Cassidy Hutchinson, who tells us bizarre clavicle stories. Nobody asks her adversarial questions about that. There's no real investigation at all, but he doesn't care about that. He only cares about the blurb and probably the photograph of the illegally constituted committee showing up in the social studies textbook.
But I don't know if it'll have an impact on this race. I think it did, and it may not be the thing that people voted on.
Yeah,
but I think it was cumulative. So whether it was abortion, whether it was January 6th, whether it was Paul Pelosi, these things add up to an uncomfortable feeling for people. This is, I mean, if you're Kevin McCarthy right now, you're in a really bad place. He's got to be feeling terrible, which doesn't bother me in any way.
I thought he was a Republican. This is supposed to be the leader of the House. He's still in the House. He's not going to be in the House any longer because his district is gone and nobody likes him, really, not even the Democrats. But it's a interesting question. Like, wouldn't you support a single Republican? Does he support any Republicans at all? Not Mitch McConnell, not Kevin McCarthy, not Donald Trump, and not Ron DeSantis.
So I look at that and say, now a quick thing to Democrats real quick. Candidate quality matters. I think you could have beaten Ron Johnson in Wisconsin with a more centrist candidate. But that said, Democrats had much better candidates than Republicans did, and that's obvious.
All right, so we'll see what happens with Adam Kinzinger. He'll probably end up running as a Democrat or for president or something like that. Guy is so... he's an interesting fellow. We'll just leave it at that. Now, he's part of the mainstream Republican, I guess. I think he may end up as a Democrat. We don't know where he's going. But we have another mainstream Republican who is very opposed to Donald Trump reacting. Paul Ryan asked about the midterm results, and he's blaming one person, as he always does, for all of the GOP's problems, even though Paul Ryan's been in the GOP for a lot longer than Donald Trump was in active politics.
I think we're going to have to do a lot of soul searching and, head scratching and looking through and parsing the numbers as to why we didn't perform as well as we would have liked to have.
Why do you think it is?
I mean, I think Trump's kind of a drag on our ticket. I think Donald Trump gives us...
He won the White House. You didn't.
Problems politically. We lost the House, the Senate, and the White House in 2 years when Trump was on the ballot or in office. And I think we just have some Trump hangover. I think he's a drag on our offices and our races.
So Paul Ryan still going after Donald Trump, even though he's been irrelevant for many years. He's popping back up again for some reason. He's sort of hitting a lot of the media circuits, and his clips are popping all over the place. So very interesting there. We also have a clip from Steve Scalise, who says that he's perfectly okay with Kevin McCarthy being the next Speaker of the House. Not even a challenge from Steve Scalise. He is going to be voting for Kevin McCarthy, presuming the Republicans take over the House of Representatives, endorsing him for Speaker.
Let me just be absolutely clear about this. So you say that you will support Kevin McCarthy for Speaker, and you pledge to not run against him?
Yeah, and I've said it very clearly. I'm supporting Kevin, and again, I think Kevin's going to win next week. And we're going to be talking about getting to work. I know a lot of people like to focus on all of the drama in Washington. We're going to get to work for the hardworking families who gave us this majority.
We'll keep watching and see where it ends up, Steve.
We will keep watching. We've got a lot of questions about it, of course, and we will wait and see. So, yes, what I wanted to do is go over here to Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden is continuing to call victors from the primaries or from the midterms. And here is a clip of him congratulating Democrats all across the country.
Hey, buddy, Joe Biden, congratulations, man. Congratulations, Joe Biden. Congratulations, kid.
How are you, Mr. President?
I'm better than you want, I tell you. Hey, Gov, congratulations. I'm so happy for you. I really am. Congratulations. I'm so excited for you. I think with the grace of God and goodwill of neighbors, all the stuff we did is only coming to fruition next year, because they heard about it, but they haven't seen it. Now, I just think there's a lot we can do. It's really, really going to matter. I'm so excited. God love you.
God love you, man.
I'll sleep better.
I'm not joking.
You want.
I'm not joking.
Keep the faith, man. Talk to you.
Not joking. All right, so that's Joe Biden. They're very excited over there. He's being handed phones. He has no idea who he's talking to, doesn't really know how to hold the phone or which way is the speaker, which way is the front or the back, how the thing works. He just says something just like the rest of the presidency. That's the president congratulating everybody. Now, some very interesting clips came out from the president. Apocalyptic. It's a hard word to say, even if you're not on the border of dementia. Joe Biden has a difficult time with this word, so he just gives up.
No, I'm just saying. I just found it interesting that Biden's being Biden's being extremist.
Extremist. There you go. There you go. Extremist. That's the better answer there. That's the better word anyways. It's not apocalyptic. It's just he's being an extremist. One more time.
No, I'm just saying. I just found it interesting that Biden's being Biden's being extremist.
Apocalyptic. It's a complicated word, man. And this was, I think, back when he was having the conversation about we're all going to die in nuclear Armageddon. Remember that? Yeah, no, Putin's probably going to nuke us all to death. We're all going to be dead any minute now. Well, that's kind of extremist. It's just extremist is all it is. All right. So that's our president. Now, you know, stuff like that, little tongue twisters, okay, or, you know, little tongue twisters, we can sort of let those go by because it's just we all get tongue-tied from time to time. It happens to me sometimes. I'm in the middle of a word. I pick a different word. We got it. But there are other flubs from the president that are a little bit more concerning. People are asking whether Joe Biden is living in the current year, given the fact that he doesn't know what war we're in. Here he is talking about Fallujah.
I think the context is that whether or not they're pulling back from Fallujah and from the Kherson, the city of Kherson.
City of Kherson. Oh, yeah. Ukraine, Russia. Dang it. Not Iraq and Afghanistan. Oh, man, bummer. You know, but all of these global conflicts that you just throw money into hand over fist, it's hard to keep track of them from time to time. And so that's Joe Biden. Not real sure what war we are in. And so that is what's going on from the midterms. Of course, Donald Trump says nothing's changing and more reaction on the election. We will, of course, continue to cover it